Okay, Peter. The lecture was so long, it was just a hair over 40 minutes. It was so long that I thought it would be best to divide the videos. Normally, I would just combine them all together, but I thought it best to divide the videos between the lecture and the class practice, so it would be a bit more manageable for you to look at and to use. Okay, so just taking a quick look here, the lesson for class practice. Class practice helps us to reinforce what we've learned during the lecture. So let's go ahead and move forward in that, and I'm going to do that by moving over here to the notepad so that we can start working on this. Okay, so class practice, the directions say express the following numbers with Arabic numerals. Okay, so let's do problem A. Problem A is XL111. Okay, XL111. So let's go ahead and let's put all this together. Okay, so one thing that might help is just kind of breaking up this problem. Okay, so we can see that we kind of have two parts here. So we know that the rules here state that when you have three numbers, okay, when you have three numerals repeated, you add them. So these are equal to 1. So 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 3. And then we have an XL, so that we know that we have another rule that says that when a smaller number precedes a larger number, we subtract the smaller, or when a smaller number comes before a larger number, we know that we subtract the smaller from the larger. So this is the same thing as saying 50 minus 10. Okay, and then if we look at both of those, we see that 50 minus 10 is 40, and then we have 3. So from here, we're going to take the 40 and we're going to add the 3 together, and we're going to see we come to 43. Okay, let me show that to you one more time. I want to make sure that you get it and understand. So problem A is XL111. Okay, so it's very often helpful to kind of break, based upon the rules, break these numbers into chunks. So we see that this part here is whenever, if we were to break these into two parts, this part and this part, we see here that whenever we remember rule, I believe it's rule 3, let me just make sure, so I want to make sure I'm giving you accurate information, but we see that when a smaller number comes before a larger number, we subtract, and that's rule 3, by the way, we subtract the smaller number from the larger. So this is equal to 50. This is equal to 10. Okay, so we're going to say 50 minus 10, but the way that we would write that in English is we would say 50 minus 10 is equal to 40. Okay, and then we come back over here and we see rule number 1 all day long that says that when a numeral is repeated, you add them. So this equals 1, so this is the same thing as saying 1 plus 1 plus 1, which equals 3. Then we take these two numbers and we add them together. So that's 40 plus 3 is equal to 43. So make sure that you're taking notes to see how that works. Let's go ahead and let's go to problem B. So problem B is C, 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 X, V, I. Okay, so here we can take a look and we can kind of divide these or split these into two and then put them back together. So we see that this here is equal to a C is equal to 100. And we know that when we have numerals that are repeated, we add them. That's rule number 1. So that's 100 plus 100 plus 100, we know that that equals 300. When we look at this Roman numeral here, we see that when we have, so actually we could actually divide this into a couple, right? So not just, let me just start over. I want to make sure that I'm being clear with you on this. So C, 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 X, V, I. So here we can divide these. So we have here, or not divide, but just kind of separate them a bit. So we can see that this is 100 plus 100 plus 100, and that equals 300. Then we see that this is 10, and then we see that this is when a smaller number comes after a larger number, we add them. So that's 6. Okay? So then we take these three that we kind of split up just so we could work with them, and now we add them back together into a total number. Okay? So 300 plus 10 is 310 plus 6 equals 316. So I'm going to leave that there. Sorry, I put that where you can see it. So what I did is I took the numbers and I split them up into manageable sized chunks, bite-sized chunks. So here I have 3 C's. Rule 1 says that when you have a numeral that repeats itself, you add them. Then I have a 10 right here, and then I have 2 numerals so that when the smaller number comes after the larger numeral, I add them. So 5 plus 1 is 6. Okay, and then I have the 10, and then 100 plus 100 plus 100 is 300. So then I take 300 plus 10, which is 310, plus 6 is 316. Okay, the next Roman numeral is CML1X. So from here, I'm going to divide these or chunk them up like this. So when I have a Roman numeral, when I have a smaller Roman numeral that is before the larger one, I'm going to subtract the smaller from the larger. So the larger, the M, equals 1,000. The C equals 100. So I'm going to subtract 100 from 1,000. And that is 900. The L is equal to 50. And when I have a smaller Roman numeral before a larger one, I subtract, just like over here, I subtract the smaller one from the larger. So that's 10 minus 1 equals 9. Now I'm going to take the number and I'm going to add it back together. 900 plus 50 is 950. Plus 9 is 959. So 900 plus 50 plus 9, that's 959. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's continue with the rest of the class practice. And this is lesson 4, or since we're doing Roman numerals, lesson 4. Okay? So, now we have problem D. Okay? And this is something that I didn't actually put in the, I made a notation in the class practice section on Canvas, but I'm going to be able to write it accurately here. So we have L, X, X, I, V. And there's a line over everything. Okay? So first, what we need to do is we need to determine the number that we have here. So we know that we can sort of divide this into two chunks. We have LXX, and then we have IV. So when a smaller number comes after a larger number, we add them, right? So L is equal to 50 plus 10 plus 10. And we know that when a Roman numeral is repeated, we add them. So we could just do, and probably the better thing to do would just be go 50, and then we know 10 plus 10, we add those, is 20. This is the same thing, but I'm just making it simpler. 5 plus 2 is 7, and then we just bring down the 0. So that's 70, and then we have this right here, right? So when a smaller number comes before a larger number, we subtract the smaller from the larger. So this is 4. That's 5 minus 1, which equals 4. So now we take this plus this. So 70 plus 4 equals 74, but we're not done yet. Remember, there's a line above the entire number, and whenever there's a line above the entire number, it's increased by 1,000. So now we multiply that by 1,000. 74 times 1,000, 74 times 1, because we know any number multiplied by 1 is the number. So 74 times 1 is 74, and then we add the zeros. So 74 times 1,000 is 74,000. Okay, I hope that made sense. Let's go ahead and let's do the others. So the other class practice, the directions say express the following numbers with Roman numerals. So now we're going to do it the other way around. Before, in the first class practice, we were looking at Roman numerals and converting them to Arabic numbers. Now we're going to be looking at Arabic numbers and converting them to Roman numerals. I'll explain. So from here, problem E gives us the Arabic number 36. And now we have to convert this using the rules. So here, we know that we can repeat Roman numerals up to 3 times, right? So we know that X is equal to 10. So we can go 10, 20, 30. So we're going to divide that by or chunk it, into 2 chunks. So we know that we can write 30 by using 3 X's, and 6, we can do that by writing V and I, V plus I, because we know that when a Roman numeral, when a smaller one comes after a larger one, we add them. So this is the same thing as saying 5 plus 1 equals 6. So here we're going to write this. This is the Roman numeral version of 36. Okay, let's continue. We're almost done. So problem F gives us the Arabic number 98. So here's where we have to remember the rules, and we got to see that it's kind of tricky. So I'm going to take these and put them into 2 separate chunks. So here I've got 90, and then I have plus 8, right? So I'm going to concentrate on writing 90 in Roman numerals, okay? So the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to remember Rule 3, which tells me that when a smaller numeral is before a larger numeral, I subtract the smaller from the larger. So here, Peter, what I'm going to do is I'm going to see that C equals 100. or the way that I'm going to write this is I'm going to basically write this like 100 minus 10. So this is basically the way that I'm going to write this. 100 minus 10, because 10 minus 1 is 9, is 90, right? So 100 decreased or minus by 10 is 90. So I'm going to write that. So 100, I know that 100 is C, and I know that 10 is X. So there's my 90. Now I need to write 8. Well, how am I going to write that in Roman numerals? So I know that if I use the Roman numerals, okay, and if I look at the chart that helps me to understand that, I can see here that 8 is the same thing as 5 plus 3. So 5 in Roman numerals is V, and 3, this is 3 ones, I'm going to write 3 I's. Remember, when a Roman numeral is repeated, you add it, and when a smaller number is after a larger number, we add them together. So 5 plus 3 is 8. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write, and sorry, there shouldn't be a space in between, but I'm taking 90 plus 8. 90 plus 8. So the way that this is going to look is XC for 90, and then I'm going to put VIII 98. And that's my answer. Okay? We're almost done. Let's go ahead, and I'm just going to put that there so that you can see that. I'm going to include these lecture notes in the lecture notes section so that you can review these, because I know that you're going to need to review these quite a few times. So problem G gives us the Arabic number 444. So remember that Roman numerals do not use the place value system. So in order for us to write 400, and in order for us to write 400, so what we're going to need to do is chunk this out into 3 chunks. Okay, so in order for us to write 400, the way that we're going to write 400 is, and remember, we can't do this, right? We can't just take 4 C's, because the last rule, Rule 6, says that it's not proper nor necessary to use to repeat a Roman numeral more than 3 times. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually go 400, so we can't do that, right? But we know that 400 is the same thing as 500 minus 100, right? Because if we take 500 and we subtract 100, we get 400. 400 is equal to 400, right? So we're going to write 400 like this. D, and then the lesser one is C, right? Because when a Roman numeral precedes or is before a larger one, rule number 3, we subtract it. 500 minus 100 is 400. So that's the 400 part. Now, that takes care of the 400. Now we've got the 40. So now we've got to deal with the 40. Now we know that we can't do 4 x's, as easy and nice as that would be. We know we can't do that because it's not proper and it's not necessary. So what we do is 40 is the same thing as 50 minus 10. We have to use the numbers that we have in the numeral system, right? So 50 minus 10 is 40. That's the same thing. 40 is equal to 40. So we're going to write it like this. L is equal to 50, and then we put the smaller one on this side so that we subtract them. So L, 50 minus 10 equals 40. And then we have the last Roman numeral, which is 4. So in our Arabic system, we do have place values. That's why we're doing it like this. We know that that's 400. We know that this is 40. We know that this is 4. But we still have to convert it to Roman numerals, which doesn't have a place value system. So here we have 4. So how do we do that? Well, we know that we can't do this, right? We can't take 4 i's and put that together because that's neither necessary nor proper. So we got to cross that out. But we know that 4 is the same thing as 5 minus 1. We have to use the numerals. They don't have a 4 in Roman numerals by itself, but we know they have a 5 and they have a 1, right? So 5 minus 1 is 4, and 4 is equal to 4. So we're going to write it like this. So we're going to say V for 5, and then we put the Roman numeral that we're going to subtract on the other side here. So 5 minus 1 is 4. So now we add these together. So we have C, D, X, L, I, V. And that equals 444. Last one. Hang in there, my number one son. Hang in there. We're almost done. Okay, so the Arabic number is 721. So here we have to split these up into 3 chunks. We have 700. We have 20. And we have 1. So this is where it gets a little interesting, right? So here, how are we going to come up? And let me just review my notes real quick just to make sure I know what I'm talking about, which I do. So now you never subtract. You never subtract. Hold on. I'm sorry. I'm figuring this out as we're talking. So here's 700. But we have to go with the numbers that we have, right? So we know that Roman numerals have a C, which equals 100. And we know that it has a D that equals 500. So what we need to do is we need to do 200 plus 500 equals 700. So the way that we do that is we go D, C, C. So when the rule number 1, when Roman numerals repeat, we add them. So CC equals 200. And then when when the smaller Roman numeral comes after the larger one, we add them. So 500, 600, 700. So we're going to hold on to that. That equals 700. Then we have 20 here. So we're going to use the first rule. We know that x is equal to 10. So 2 x's. When we repeat Roman numerals, we add them. So that's 20. And then we know an I is equal to 1. So now we're just going to add these together. So we have DCC plus XX plus I. And when we add that together, we get DCCXXI. That equals 721. Okay, and that is our class practice. Okay, so let's go ahead and shift out of this, and let's have you go back to the assignment. So your first assignment, Peter, for lesson 4 is, and that will be available tomorrow. Actually, it's available now. It's due tomorrow before midnight, and I don't expect you to be up that late, but I just have the time to give you the maximum amount of time as possible. So let's go ahead and click on the written exercise, and actually, why don't we do that from your perspective as a student? So we're going to go back to student view, look at the assignment, and we're going to see this is your assignment that's due. Okay, so I'm assigning it to you tonight, and it's due sometime tomorrow. So from here, lesson 4, written exercise A, see that it's due tomorrow before midnight. You're submitting it on paper. It's available now, and will be available until 1 minute after midnight on the 14th. After that, it's going to close. Okay, so homework assignment, lesson 4, written exercises, section A. So I'm breaking this up into manageable size chunks so that you're able to absorb and learn the material. Lesson 4, written exercises, sections A, section A, problems 1 through 14, all of them, and that's located on page 21. So you're going to do problems 1 through 14 and turn those back in. Please make sure that you're following for full credit the assignment formatting. Know that the homework is due the next day and must be ready to turn in at start of class. So know that that homework is going to be due tomorrow, and you're going to want to we're kind of squeezing it in, but I'm going to give you an extension. It's due tomorrow, and then after that you're going to review the lecture and the lesson, and then the next assignment is going to open up for you, but we'll cover that tomorrow. Okay, so right now just review the class practice, review the lecture, and know that this homework needs to be worked on and turned in tomorrow before the end of the day. Okay, all right, son, I'm proud of you in all of this. You're doing really well. I just want to say that with the makeup assignments that you had with biology and with math, I am so proud of you that you buckled down, that you focused, and that you turned in the work. I will be grading those assignments, and I will be getting back to you on those assignments sometime at the end of this week. Okay? Love you, son. Good night.